some years ago, they came out with stamps, and it was a Harry Potter series on the stamps. And our son Felix, when I showed him the sleeve of Harry Potter stamp, he was, yay! He was all over the place, all excited. He was, yeah. You see the same energy when it's a nail-biter game, and then last minute, a touchdown. And the rafters, everything goes out in elation, and the players, you see them dancing and celebrating and being all excited, all out there. That is the extroverted joy. That's the joy that catches on and you see it fill a space and a stadium. But there is also a deep, deep inner joy. That is elation, that is such a delight, so beautiful. And I imagine you experience that with your precious rainbow baby. Holding her up and knowing, what a miracle, what a gift, what a treasure. And you can feel it in your whole body. And it fills your heart. It's this joy, this gift, the precious moment that we open up in. And that is at the heart of our faith, my friends. Faith that is only in your head, the heart is the center of our faith, and actually it goes deeper, in my opinion. It's also in our bodies, when we're wrapped up, when we can feel it in our toes, the energy, the joy, the elation. And I think that's what the disciples experienced. First of all, right before our scripture reading, Mary Magdalene, she's in the garden. She goes, she peeks into the tomb. Jesus is not there. There are these figures in there, and she leaves, and then she walks in the garden, and then there is Jesus coming to her in the garden, and she looks, and she doesn't recognize him, and she thinks Jesus is the gardener. So she asks Jesus, tell me, where did you put the body? Where is Jesus? Tell me about it. And then Jesus says, Mary. And when Jesus says her name, she recognizes him and Jesus disappears. And she is overjoyed. She's all excited and she runs to share that excitement, that energy, that deep love and joy with his disciples, with his friends. And right afterwards, we come to the story you've just heard, our gospel story, where Jesus' friends and disciples, they were locked in out of fear. And you know how much fear can constrain you. It's almost like you can be petrified, paralyzed, confined. Fear has somehow, some way, a way of squeezing life out of you. And Jesus comes to them right into their fear, where they are overwhelmed, where they don't know what else to do. He appears to them and says, peace. It's almost like in our language, it will be okay. We need someone when we're terrified, when we're afraid, when we're in a hole, when we're in a depression, when we feel like throwing up our hands, someone coming to us, being with us in that hole, in the darkness, and saying, it's going to be okay. Peace be with you. And then he breathes on them, and that's a reflection of the breath of life. You know, like when you're terrified, afraid, it's almost like strangling you. You can't breathe anymore. And I have sometimes this anxiety when I'm to speak and all. I breathe in, I breathe in, I breathe in more, and I can't breathe out, or I don't breathe out, and I'm so worked up. I have a hard time. So the breath of life comes back into the disciples in the presence of Jesus as he breathes on them, and with that breath, the presence of the living God, the Spirit of God, as the presence of the peaceful comforter, the advocate who is with us. And they come alive again. They're in awe, it says. And Jesus says, I'm sending you. Just like Mary Magdalene, she was going and running to share her story, her excitement. In the same way, the disciples are to go out and share about their experiences of the living one. Except for Thomas was not there. And that's where I come into. I wish, hands on, I could feel Jesus and see Jesus just as those first disciples. There is a spiritual teacher who said, actually, some students came to him and said, how does this go? In the ancient days, talking about the Bible days and so on, people heard God and people saw God, and people experienced Jesus in their midst. How come that's not happening here and now today anymore? And the teacher said, because today people do not stoop that low again, in a sense of we don't take ourselves back enough. The distractions, the busyness, the worries, whatever is creeping in. I think when we move away, get ourselves a little bit more out of the way, we're more open to experience the living one. And their stories, their experiences that blow my mind of people who have seen loved ones die terribly. And then they had this dream and this vision that Grandpa is okay. Grandpa appeared in their dream. Heard of Jeremy, whose dad died. And he said he felt like his dad putting his hand on his shoulder and breathing right from the back on him. And he knew he's okay. I've heard from a sweet, sweet lady whose sister died tragically of cancer. She was out in a cabin. And there was a deer coming from behind the lake, right out of the woods, came to her presence, and she saw her sister in the deer. She could feel the presence of her sister right in that deer. My friends, there are signs, there are wonders, there are appearances among us. When we pay attention, we recognize the living Christ in our midst, in our hearts. And I still want to see and touch Jesus just like Thomas. It's both, isn't it? So I wish you pay attention. I wish you peace of mind and deep peace in your hearts, that you become aware of the living one among us. And someone said there are burning bushes all around us. It's just, it takes eyes and hearts to see them, to perceive them. And I think it's the same with the call of God.